to rocket into space.
Ready, Matt? 3, 2, 1, release.
Lead release. Fire.
Pilot Brian Binney fired the rocket.
Good light. Good light.
Copy.
Holy! That was cool.
He narrowly missed a collision with the mothership.
That's good, though.
350, suggest shutdown.
Roger, shutdown.
Within seconds, he had crossed the boundary into space, 100 kilometers above Earth.
Boy, it's really quiet up here. I'm gonna get the camera out.
Roger that.
Binney was able to take a few snaps for the album, from the first privately built spaceship to reach space.
RCSC on.
Copy that, Brian. It's moving and it's green. The CTM's a little warm, but looking fine. 3, 2, 1, coming down.
The civilian race for space had been won. But for Bert, this was only the start of his dream.
If I could please invite onto the stage Bert Rutan, the designer of the first private spaceship, SpaceShipOne. Bert?
I'll tell you something. I have a hell of a lot bigger goal. And you know what that goal is? I absolutely have to develop a manned space tourism system that's at least 100 times safer than anything that's ever flown manned to space, and probably a lot more. I have to do that.
Bert's ambitions are shared by billionaire entrepreneur Sir Richard Branson, and together they have set their sights on helping you reach the stars. Thousands of kilometers away, at his private Caribbean island, Necker, Richard puts his mind to taking tourists into space.
I'm old enough to have seen the moon landing, and I assumed that I one day would go to the moon. But the decades went by, and government-run space agencies were not that interested in getting you or me into space. So, out of frustration, we decided to create a private spaceship company where we could get as many people as possible to be able to experience spaceship travel.
This is Richard's dream, to use Bert Rutan's spaceship technology to take you on the trip of a lifetime. On board a spaceplane, you'll jet 60,000 feet up, to then rocket at 5,000 kilometers an hour, up to outer space. Pop your seatbelt and float in zero gravity. Then, check out the amazing views. You'll coast 104 kilometers above Earth for 6 whole minutes, until it's time to go home.
The spaceship will glide serenely back to Earth, and my guess is that quite a lot of them will be itching to get back up again.
Today, rocketing to space isn't for the faint-hearted. Astronauts must train hard to prepare for launch day. They have to be super fit to handle the extreme force of gravity.
2, 1, 0.
booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery.
But Richard Branson's business banks on just about anyone being able to fly, regardless of age or levels of fitness. Something Dave Clark, who must find future passengers, is all too aware of.
What if we had the spaceships and we had all these people signed up and then nobody was actually physically able to fly?
To find out if the average person could jet into space, the NASTAR Center in Philadelphia has developed a custom flight simulation.
We've developed a centrifuge program to replicate as almost exactly what's going to happen to your body in your trip into space.
GX now, concentrate on your breathing.
And finding out how most people would react has never been done before.
The data that they have on centrifuge is mostly from the military. These are the most healthy, perfectly proportioned, physical specimens of the population. These are Top Gun pilots, whereas we have people's kids, people, overweight people, older people.
Now talk about your gene training profiles.
75 space tourists, including Richard, have volunteered to go for a spin. They are about to discover what 5,000 kilometers an hour feels like.
You got the training, you got the tools, you know what to do. All right, go. You're at Mach 2, climbing at 80,000 feet.
The trainers ratchet up the G's. This is as close as it gets to the real thing.
You're feeling the rush in the heart, you're feeling the pressure on your chest.
Coming up to Mach 3.
The adrenaline is flowing.
Here's your chance to catch your breath.
Thank you very much.
Richard, tell us, what was it like?
It was wonderful. I mean, it's so important to go through that so that when you actually go into space, you can just lie back and enjoy the whole experience and not be worried about, is your body going to cope?
Richard sails through the test. But will the oldest volunteer, scientist Professor James Lovelock? He's 91 years old and is hoping he too will be able to fly to outer space. Space tourists will feel the power of G-forces. During takeoff and landing, the heart struggles to pump blood to the brain. But with training, it is possible to avoid the dangers. By squeezing your leg muscles, you can improve blood flow, making for safer spaceflight.
Welcome back to Earth, astronaut. You are now our most senior centrifuge rider. You hold the record.
Oh, good.
All 75 wannabe space tourists pass with flying colors, proving it is possible to fly into space, whatever your age or condition.
Did well, James.
The G-forces are quite brief, and the centrifuge has now shown that really anybody can do this flight. Stephen Hawkins is planning to go into space with us. He'll be able to put up with it. James Lovelock, the environmentalist, he's going to go into space with us.
Now, it's just a case of saving up to buy your ticket for $200,000.
We've got to try to come up with clever ways of getting that price down and down and down. Every $10,000 we can get it down opens the market up that much more. And I think 50 years from now, hopefully literally hundreds of thousands of people will be able to afford to go into space.
Richard Branson had the vision to turn space into the ultimate tourist destination. Now, all he needed was a spaceship. Back in Mojave, following his X-Prize win, Burt Rutan and his team started engineering his space tourist dream.
what we're doing is important because it's doing something that's never been done.
Bert's prize-winning prototype, SpaceShipOne, carried just one pilot into space. There's not enough room for space tourists, so Bert scales up his spaceship and creates a version for 6 passengers. And it's built with the sightseer in mind. Each passenger gets a window seat next to an aisle. It's double the size of its predecessor, so it needs a bigger, twin fuselage mothership. But safety is always a top priority.
We can't achieve the level of safety that you do with modern airliners because they've had 7 decades of maturity. However, I do feel that to fly the public, this should not be looked at it as a dangerous adventure.
But modern airliners don't have to re-enter our planet's atmosphere. Anything speeding towards Earth tends to burn up. Bert's determined to ensure his space plane will be hundreds of times safer than spaceflight today. So, he has developed a revolutionary way for his spaceship to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere slowly. The space plane's wings pivot 65 degrees. Its fuselage flattens into the airstream, creating stable drag, like a shuttlecock. SpaceShipTwo is so lightweight and the drag so high, it rapidly slows down without heating up. Then, at 70,000 feet above the ground, the wings realign like a glider, and the craft touches smoothly down on the runway.
My solution was to find the very safest way to land a manned spaceship. To me, it was the simplest way of doing a difficult job.
October 2010. It's taken 5 years to develop SpaceShipTwo. Today, she's leaving the hangar for her maiden voyage. At Mojave Spaceport, there is only one question on everyone's lips. Will she fly? Richard and Bert have gambled their reputations and a small fortune on the odds that she will. They are about to find out.
Standing next to Bert, watching it get higher and higher and higher. Obviously, Bert was understandably extremely nervous. I was nervous for him and for us.
45,000 feet above their heads, it's the moment of truth.
10 seconds. We are armed.
Release.
Clear the plane.
Good release.
Okay, it's gone. All good, all good. Beautiful.
Yeehaw!
That's great. Beautiful flight.
She flies perfectly.
We got word back that it was flying absolutely beautifully. It was a tremendous moment. You know, we really are close to the dream becoming a reality.
Beautiful job, Pete.
The final frontier is one step closer. Soon, you could be taking your seat on this spaceship for your unforgettable 6 minutes in space. But for these stargazers, this is only the beginning. If they have their way, you could travel on their spaceship to an orbiting hotel for the ultimate space vacation.
A lot of my life has been about dreams. If you don't dream, you don't make anything. One day you might see a giant V floating around the Earth.
The Wright brothers didn't think there'd be hundreds of people having a meal going to London. I think that in my lifetime you will see resort hotels in orbit.
Staying at a space hotel, you can expect more than 5-star luxury. From here, you can gaze on an entire galaxy.